the short but storied history of aviation, there have been many reports of strange and ghostly occurrences. These stories range from phantom bombers to apparitions of long-deceased pilots and engineers. Today, we will be exploring some of the more interesting tales involving phantoms in aviation. To begin with, here are some short excerpts of ghostly apparitions, phantom aircraft, and more. At Annecy Aerodrome in 1996, a figure wearing a World War II pilot suit walked past one witness as he stood by a photocopier. The figure then passed through a pair of closed doors leading outside and disappeared into a field. Near the Rolls-Royce Bankfield factory in the UK, around 30 witnesses claimed to have seen a silent, gray-colored aircraft resembling a World War II Lancaster bomber moving silently through the sky. In 2004, at the former RAF Air Base in Bassingbourn, a man who lived on site claimed to have seen a disembodied pair of legs in dress uniform while he was in his home, and it was accompanied by the sounds of aircraft starting up. A reoccurring sighting that occurs in Biggin Hill, England, is that of a phantom Spitfire that is seen flying overhead and sometimes making noise as well. Airmen dressed in trench coats have also been reported in the village, asking for directions before disappearing. A ghostly non-commissioned officer was seen for some time after his accidental death at Binbrook RAF base during World War II. Sergeant Sinclair was in charge of loading bombs onto aircraft there during the war. A mistake had occurred during the bomb loading, causing the bomb to explode on takeoff. Sinclair had been killed trying to flag the aircraft down to alert it to the mistake. Sergeant Sinclair's ghost was repeatedly seen on the runway, waving his arms wildly in the air. At Burtonwood, an old World War II RAF airfield, a headless airman has been observed standing around. It is thought that he had been decapitated while trying to bail out prior to crash landing. In Albrighton, at the Cosford Aerospace Museum, the last remaining Avro Lincoln bomber in existence is on display. The aircraft is said to be haunted by a pilot who has been seen on multiple occasions sitting in the cockpit. A tape recorder was left behind overnight by a curious worker and picked up the sounds of a busy airport, even though the hangar is closed at night and completely devoid of life. In a tale coming from a Virgin Atlantic flight, a flight attendant recounted that she had entered the galley where she found an elderly man standing there. The man asked the flight attendant to pass along a message to a woman on board, telling her that he was okay. The flight attendant went to deliver the message to the woman, who seemed confused for a moment. She then pulled a photo from her wallet and asked if this was the man in question. When the flight attendant confirmed that it was the same man, the woman informed her that the man was indeed on board the plane, in a coffin in the cargo hold. A phantom Douglas Dakota aircraft has been spotted on numerous occasions over the Peak District in the UK, near Sheffield, England. The Douglas Dakota was an aircraft that was flown by the Royal Air Force in the 1940s, over 60 years ago. The most recent known sighting took place as a woman was doing errands and shopping in the Peak District in February of 2017. The witness stated that she was on her way back from the doctor's when her daughter yelled out, "What's that?" The woman looked up to see an aircraft coming at them while on its side, at which point it completely vanished from sight. Another witness from the area recounted a sighting that took place a few years earlier. She stated that she was driving with her son when suddenly she spotted an aircraft flying very low towards them. She and her son were certain that it was going to crash into them, and then it suddenly banked sideways and disappeared. This second witness also stated that her grandson told her that he and his friends had had a similar experience while driving along the same stretch of road. In a possible related sighting, two gentlemen from the area claimed that they were driving in the area when they spotted a hitchhiker along the road, who disappeared as soon as they turned around to pick him up. The hitchhiker is alleged to have been standing at the very spot where a pilot died in a plane crash during World War II. On December of 1972, Eastern Airlines TriStar jetliner Flight 401 crashed into a Florida swamp, killing 101 people aboard. Two of the people killed on the flight were pilots Bob Loft and flight engineer Don Repo, but as the story goes, this would not be the last time that Bob Loft and Don Repo were seen. Shortly after the crash, the ghosts of Bob and Don would be seen on more than 20 occasions by crew members on other Eastern TriStar jetliners, most often in planes that had been fitted with parts salvaged from Flight 401. The ghosts of Loft and Repo were not only reported by co-workers who had known them, but also by crew members that had never met them previously. In one case, a female passenger inquired to a flight attendant regarding a quiet, unresponsive man in Eastern Airlines uniform sitting in the seat next to her, who subsequently disappeared in full view of them and other passengers around them. The woman understandably became hysterical and was later able to identify the man via photograph as Don Repo. Another sighting occurred when one of the TriStars fitted with parts from Flight 401 was undergoing pre-flight inspections. The flight engineer aboard who was conducting the flight inspection was shocked when Repo appeared before him and stated, "You don't need to worry about the pre-flight. I've already done it." A flight attendant aboard another TriStar jetliner reported that she observed a man in a flight engineer's uniform fixing a galley oven. The flight engineer aboard this particular jetliner insisted that he had not worked on the oven, leading to the flight attendant later identifying Don Repo as the engineer in question via a photograph. In another sighting, flight attendants were shocked to see the face of Don Repo peeking out at them through the glass from inside the galley oven. One of the attendants recognized Repo and asked him what he was doing in there. Repo replied, "Look out for a fire on this plane." The flight did in fact later have an issue with one of the engines, but was able to continue their flight safely. A vice president of Eastern Airlines boarded a Miami-bound TriStar at JFK Airport and reported speaking to a uniformed captain sitting nearby in first class. As he came to the realization that the captain was the deceased Bob Loft, the apparition vanished. There's something particularly intriguing regarding the notion of phantom aircraft, and the ghostly apparitions of the pilots and crew members who are sometimes associated with them. I'd like to thank you for joining me on this cursory exploration of phantoms and apparitions in the world of aviation. Please join me next time as I continue to explore conspiracies, the unexplained, high strangeness, and more.